First of all, good morning to all of you. I welcome Dr. Vijay Kumar, our Commission Secretary to the Planning Department and also the Finance Department and also to the Chief Minister. Thank you for your time, Dr. Vijay. Just for your benefit and also just like, for the benefit of everybody, I'll just take a few minutes to recap what we have learned yesterday. And I also, of course, request Professor Michael also to join me on this recap, and then by the remarks from Dr. Vijay. So, the idea that what we had, we started with the inaugural session, and where our Honorable Chief Minister was there, and our respected Chief Secretary was there, and they gave, and also Professor Michael. So they have given some very good, important insights about the importance of this work, what we are trying to do. So what, in terms of like what our Chief Minister has mentioned, was that we definitely require, a change in shifting our mind, especially towards how actually we wanted to learn and, build the state capacity. So it's essentially when we wanted to become a learning and capable state, we definitely require that approach, how actually each one with bring that intrinsic motivation to change, to make a difference in, in the work what we are doing. And the second thing what our Chief Secretary, sir, I think he mentioned very beautifully, one of the challenges is that implementation. How actually we are going to build the capacity of implementation, how we have good programs, what is the, and of course, Professor Michael, what he mentioned was very important insight that this, while, the world population is growing and, even in our state population is growing, there is also a challenge that, there is increased expectations and aspirations of the people over the state. So how actually we are going to address those expectations and aspirations unless we really try to build the state capacity to meet those aspirations. So it's a lot of work for us, but there is no way we need to. But that work, if we can do it with a lot of fun, that's what we're discussing with Shailendra. Let us do with a lot of fun and joy. If we can work with that, I think we are going to really take from the state from A to B, and while taking from A to B, there may be some challenges, there may be some kind of an adaptations are required. Those adaptations that we are trying to make in terms of learning, in terms of our work approach and everything. So I think yesterday you all must have learned about especially the beautiful the practice of PDIA, Problem-Driven Iterative Adaptation approach, thanks to Professor Michael Woolcock, who has ran this session along with Pratik and Rebecca. And in this session, we have learned, I would say, first thing we have learned about how to actually, use, for solving complex problems, how can we use this particular method? And when we see the particular method, one is that whether we are able to identify the problem as it's a technical problem or adaptive problem. I think we can differentiate now. Am I right? We can differentiate what is the technical problem, what is adaptive problem. So I feel like, that ability to, identify the problem or I would say constructing the problem as a technical or adaptive itself is, will be making a huge difference. Then the second thing we also have about, this entire iterative learning approach and experimentation. And some of the important concepts I would say is that challenging the default notions, challenging the default explanations. For everything we say, this is not happening because of this. Can we actually challenge those default explanations? Can we do differently? And, and then we also talked about especially education department. Actually, I really appreciated one of the positive deviance case. We always think that hopelessness, but there is a hope. Somebody is already actually doing differently. So how actually we can see that positive deviance, codify it, and diffuse it, and propagate it. So it's a methodical process that we have learned. Some of these concepts would be, we do it intuitively, but what we are learned is that we can really apply this more systematically to solve different problems. We also have learned about how to manage teams up and also how to manage teams out, how to manage your own teams, essentially hierarchical, how to create that authorizing environment, especially if you're an authorizer, how actually you are going to create that space for your team to really learn and do well. So I think that's another authorization. So essentially bringing more autonomy. We have learned from Dan Honig, who said, like, who has shown the data that the especially he said this monitoring method, the top down monitoring method would not give the kind of our incentive based methods would not give greater results. The better results you will get if you actually can provide a supportive management systems. It's essentially is talking about intrinsic motivation, mission, government workforce, I would say, or he calls it mission bureaucracy. I think that's something a data has been created. They have experimented in Pakistan, even in India also, and some different places that, so we learned about it, the importance of creating that supportive management. I think that's a very interesting thing. Thereafter, we had a fantastic session with Mr. Ashish and Dr. Sandra about the importance of the using the data, and how to look at the data, how to actually data people see only just as the data, but the way they have connected the rural development and health department so beautifully about the impact, how to see the outcomes, and how to see the impact, how to see the purpose. I think so that's again a very good learning for all of us. And the end session by the in fact Dr. Sanjeev brought some fantastic people from Boston, Jane and Bobby. So they have given a very interesting dimension of stewardship. How stewardship is so important, and basically, again, a next level of leadership, stewardship. So one, we got to know some very good insights, especially I think that thinking how actually we can percolate it to a larger number of cutting edge leadership. Once that goes, then actually we can see a state completely differently. That stewardship, I like that formula. I hope if I remember, I will say it is essentially the stewardship formula is S, to the power of R multiplied by FC equal to RR. Okay. so I that's a beautiful thing. But I would say, what is S? S is those, like all of us are S. That basically we are all S. S is those who are practicing deeply that stewardship, like how actually managing teams, working with a purpose, doing changing the things. I see the Dr. Umalong, she doesn't want to leave the place though she got transferred, so because she wanted to do something there, she's here. So basically this is what the stewardship. So that's at the depth of the stewardship is the S. Okay. And it is powered by, that means powered means basically exponential increase. It will increase if you maintain the relationships. It's a beautiful thing. And relationships of what? Across differences. It's a beautiful way, across differences. So not the relationship with your own group. Please, social welfare department, and Ronald and Kang Hazel, I think they work like so beautifully now. So that is what the relationship across, your different departments, but you're working. So it actually exponentially the power can go. So that's a beautiful way at looking at it. And then with FC is that I think the context, right? Whether it is fitting the context, and then that is a multiplication, and then you will find thriving. We can all thrive together. The whole state can prosper, a whole nation can prosper. So we ended with that one. It's a beautiful way of doing this, and also today, like we with Niti Aayog and West Khasi Hills District, we have taken one pilot we wanted to do to experiment this systematically, across, and in next 1 year we would like to see that, also measure that entire impact. So with this, I also request Professor Michael just to share the bigger insights that what actually you have learned from us also, what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Sampath. I just want to thank all of you for entering into this space. I think that's the first aspect of this ultimate, and the last aspect of it ultimately. My co-author and friend on this work, Matt Andrews, often says that PDIA is easier done than said. Right, we're all familiar with that expression that some things are easier said than done, but I think PDIA is actually the reverse of that. It's reversed in a lot of different ways. One of those is that the way to understand it is to do it, and so that's why I offered up my little office hours this morning for those souls who were willing to do. So it's not you got a 7 out of 10 and go back and try it again. It's like enter into the space of thinking about these questions in these kinds of ways. And it's ultimately the experience of doing this, I think, that's the most compelling. Most of us in this room live in a world of numbers and a world of written words, and that's how we apprehend the world. That's what convinces us to do things. But I think the evidence itself would say that's a very limited way of how we change people. We change people through changing mindsets, as we say, sort of the lens through which you view the world, but also the way you experience these things. And much of our discussion, even on PDIA is an abstraction. It's a acronym. It's a way of turning the complexity and the vastness of the world into words so that we can have a conversation about difficult things. But ultimately, it's an abstraction. Infant mortality is an abstraction until you're holding your dead baby, like I have done. Right? Infant mortality will never be an abstraction to me. I've held my own dead child. I know what that feels like. And I can create nice little graphs like everybody else about what it will take to see that number go down. But you care about an issue fundamentally differently when it's not just a nice Excel spreadsheet or not a little data code, but when you live it and experience it. And I think part of that is what we're trying to do with PDIA, is give you an experience of what trying to do analytical work about problem solving looks like, and to understand and engage with your change space, not just as AAA or anything else we come up with for simplifying a complexity. It's so that you can enter back into that space and experience it and apprehend it in a slightly different way that helps you to see what you couldn't see before. Right? And I think that's ultimately what good teaching is about. It's and ultimately what PDIA itself is. It's a pedagogical tool. It's helping you to think about and see and then ultimately respond to the world in a different kind of way. And so all of this will make more sense to you, not the more times you read the toolkit, but the more times you actually spend trying to think hard, not just alone either, but with other people about how you are now trying to apprehend your world. And then you'll start to see things you didn't see before. That's the magic of it. That's the magic of teaching. It's helping people to see and feel what they didn't see and feel before. That's what great novelists think they're doing all the time. It's not just showing you how well they can write. It's helping you enter a different space, a different world. And you feel it, ultimately. You're not convinced by the evidence that's in the novel. You're convinced by the experience because it resonates with you. It's consistent with your own sense of how the world works, but someone somehow found a way to articulate that moves you there, not just up there. So getting a balance between those two is really essential. When I first joined the World Bank, the president took it upon himself to send all his vice presidents to India. Right? These are people like 4 levels above anybody that actually does real field work. Right? So maybe they were superstars back in the day and had done all sorts of nice anthropological work, but they were maybe some of them were decades beyond actually feeling all of this. They could manage an Excel spreadsheet. They could have a discussion with human resources about the optimal way in which that particular talented person could be matched with that particular. They're all good at that. They could fire people. That was hard. Yeah? But they'd just forgotten how to feel. And they all sort of rolled their eyes when the president told them that this was kind of childish, but he's the president, so they had to do it. And it was just wonderful to read their 2-paragraph responses, some of which were shared to the rest of the organization. Some of it was kind of predictable. Oh my goodness, poor people are so interesting. They live such happy lives. I wish I could be like them. And then I went, right? But the best ones, of course, were, wow, this is what actually we're doing. We're not just here to manage budgets. We're not just here to make sure the people are in the right place. That's very necessary, but it's deeply insufficient. You've got to feel this. Feeling doesn't go away. Evidence comes and goes, right? But you didn't come into your profession because you consulted an Excel spreadsheet and the data said that was the optimal use of your time over the next 40 years of your life, right? You came into it because you woke up one day in your early 20s with something burning in there that said, I deeply care about this. Something happened in your life, some person, some document you read, some religious epiphany perhaps you had. Either way, something touched you that put you in a different space. And that's happened to me. I'd wager if I had intense conversations with every single person in this room, you'd have your own version of that kind of story, right? So changing things is about trying to give people a different set of glasses to wear about these things. And PDI is just one humble attempt to try and do that. So it's not about getting high grades on your next test on PDIA. That's the last of it. I want to see it being evaluated. I want to see it have an evidence base that informs it. Of course, that's what I'm paid to worry about. What I really think I'm paid to worry about is to help people see, help people experience what an alternative to the orthodoxy might look like. And then have the courage of their convictions, have the courage of their own imagination to see and then instantiate what that alternative might look like, knowing full well, as we said yesterday from one of the nice inputs, was if you're not taking on something that you won't actually see realized in your lifetime, you're not taking on something big enough. Maybe that's a little excessive. We kind of need a few wins every now and then to keep us motivated and have a little warm glow of satisfaction every now and then. But ultimately, all the things that humans have done across history were big, crazy initial visions that everybody laughed at them. The best book I'm reading right now is called The Internationalists, about a group of people who in 1928 decided to try and outlaw war, like make war between countries illegal. And the first chapter is all about the ridicule and mockery that they endured from people who thought these people were the most naive humans on the planet. Who could possibly think that simply making war illegal on a piece of paper would stop the tyrants of the world doing whatever they were doing? And the rest of the chapter then goes to say, and 10 years later, pretty much every country that was a signatory to the original document was already signed up for or in World War II. All the critics were vindicated, right? They take you another decade down. World War II is over. What are we going to do to try and prevent the awfulness of that happening again? What those crazy people did back in 1928 then became the foundation for the International War Crimes Tribunal. It became the whole new basis for thinking about the rules of war. It became the foundations for lots of international law, such that even the tyrants of today, grudgingly but necessarily, engage with those same kinds of rules. Right? Those people never saw the fruits of their labor, but they were crazy enough to think that that was actually the right way to proceed on these particular issues. Right? So that's what I think we lack in the 21st century. We don't have people who can imagine that. We just have people that think that we can work within the existing frontier and have more rigorous evidence that will consolidate what we're already doing. When I think history says the really big things were always fantastical initially until they became the new normal, or became over time something perhaps that I didn't even anticipate that it would be, but somehow it was able to be taken up by a subsequent generation and reprised and fit for purpose for that world. And I think what we have in the world today been bequeathed enormous amounts of resourcing, enormous amounts of goodwill, amounts of institutional resources to work with. And how they all came to be was the product of people that met in rooms like this and were laughed at and mocked at for what they were doing until they weren't. And we've got to try and see ourselves as part of that process, but in an attitude of humility, not because we've figured it out, but because we're trying to figure it out. And we don't believe that we can do it ourselves. We do it because other people actually know way more than we do about how to actually engage with these problems. It's giving a voice to those people and respecting their knowledge and respecting the way they apprehend the world. That ultimately, when harnessed with all this other stuff and connected to experience and the resonance of that legitimacy, enables things we could never have anticipated to happen in a very spectacularly beautiful way. That's what humans can do at their best. They can slaughter each other at mass too when they start to use these same tools in the wrong way. But that's what this idea of stewardship makes it so compelling. Right? We've inherited these things. It's our moment in history to be the stewards of all these things that have been given to us. What are we going to do with that? Are we going to use it to dominate other people and crush them like so many others have tried to in the past? Or is it going to be different this time? It probably won't be different this time, but we want to try. It's our job to figure out how to make that happen. And I want you to see PDIA as one little drop in that little ocean of attempting to try and think about and respond to these things in a different way. If we do that, I'll be way more happy than whether you get 7 out of 10 on your PDIA scorecard. Thanks very much.
It's a great, with a great insights from Professor Michael Woolcock. Thank you. So now, Dr. Vijay, would you like to just like say a few words, and then we can start the day 2. I think I request Dr. Vijay Kumar so to give his remarks and maybe the vision that he also would like to share for all of us. Yeah.
A very good morning to you all. Sampath sir, Principal Secretary of the Planning Department and Development Commissioner, Michael. I see all our friends from the, from the bank, from the Gates Foundation, from all our officers here, Sandra. It's wonderful to kind of be here and to, very kind of you to have recapped what has happened yesterday. And again, it's inspiring to listen to Professor Woolcock. Here in Meghalaya, I mean, all of you, I think we keep interacting almost on a very regular basis with many people in this room. And I'm sure you've all gone through this of, just coming to my room and I'm trying to, solve too many things and, you're just waiting for that one moment. Okay, can I get this done? So there is a whole rush to do a lot of things. I mean, in many quarters. This is not just, it's happening in his room too. It's happening in many bureaucrats, politicians. I think it goes all the way up to, the Prime Minister's office. I think there are leaders who are trying to do a lot of things. There are institutions which are trying to get things done. But then what we don't realize in our day-to-day in the business as usual way of working is that unless we fix basic things, however much you may run around, however much you may shout and scream and huff and puff, things are not going to change. So one day when I was explaining my frustrations to my wife came up with this title. The title of your book should be Bicycling to the Moon. Because you can never bicycle to the moon, right? You need something else to go to the moon. So to achieve all the things that we want to achieve, as leaders, as visionaries, whatever we think of ourselves, we first need the right system. We first need to fix the whole system and fundamental things in the system. So when we keep discussing about state capability, PDIA, and a whole host of other things, I am a huge believer in technology, information flows. So the thing is, I think there are too many things which we need to fix. Whether your problem is, improving, reducing infant mortality, or building agri-value chains, or improving the sports culture and making Olympians. The solutions to all these problems rely on the basic building blocks. The system that we have, how do we make this system effective? I think the fundamental thing to me when I think that's lacking in our system, which we need to build, is autonomy. Everywhere it's the same. I was just having breakfast with the Vice Chancellor of NEHU today morning, and he was basically saying, from casual muster rolls to heads of departments, everybody wants my time. They just want to come to me for resolution of every problem. It's the same. It's the same in government. It's the same, especially in the government, in every organization, whatever it is, whether it's Government of India, states, as I said, autonomous institutions, educational institutions, there is no autonomy in the system. So people at different levels don't have the autonomy. They're always looking up for decisions. So when you're looking up for few people to make the decisions, either those few people have to be ultra competent and have all the time in the world and have all the knowledge in the world to be able to make those right decisions, which is not possible. So therefore, these decisions are not getting made, right? But then there's the challenge of how much autonomy to give people. And there is, I think, unfortunately, in government, there is this deep distrust. I think it comes from, somebody told me it's a system, that was created by British because they didn't trust and the people who are sitting as leaders. So, they wanted to just ensure that, people kind of were checked at every point. So they created these multiple levels and we continue with this system, God knows. So the point is, to me, to solve the autonomy problem, there is still, In fact, 2 weeks ago, I was having this discussion with the senior auditors of the country. So there were this controller and auditor generals who came to Shillong, and we were having this discussion. They were saying pretty much the same thing, which is that we need to create a system where people can take action, but at the same time, we can't completely delegate. So this is a challenge I think a lot of people seem to be going through. So to me, the solution for this, we definitely need to give autonomy. We definitely need to delegate a lot. We need free flow of information. The problem is an information problem, which is when you give autonomy to people, so you're not able to see. This is the problem from Chinese emperors to everybody else has faced. That is, how much do I delegate and how do I ensure? This is the principal agent problem too, right? So to me, I think that problem can today be solved with free flow of information with technology. So which is basically, if we have systems where today, I think everything can happen on a computer, on your internet, and every action that we are taking, of course not everything, but most, can be seen, can be put in the public domain for everybody. It's both a monitoring tool in the top-down approach, but also in the bottom-up approach or in the learning approach, it's also information for all of us. So yesterday we were discussing about, in Meghalaya, we're running this project called the Enterprise Architecture Project. So in the Enterprise Architecture Project, what did we do? We have this archaic file system where, a proposal, if somebody wants, if health department wants to buy gloves, medical gloves or some medicines in some remote PHC in a Bagmara, so they will have to send a requisition to the Director of Health Services. The Director of Health Services has to send a proposal to the health department saying that, oh, this was not budgeted or thought of, so we want to buy this. The health department has to send it to the minister has to approve, then it has to go to the planning department, then it has to go to the finance department, then it comes back. So this is the same system for a very small thing or for even a 500 crore road project. The process is the same. So now how do we, and this process takes like 2 years sometimes. So in the best case, it takes 6 months. I mean, she's nodding very aggressively. I think they all suffer this process, being field functionaries and stuff. I mean, I'm also in charge of the tourism. My tourist officers tell me the same thing. If they want to put up a small board, welcome to Meghalaya, in some remote corner of the state. Because we have this very interesting thing that all new schemes should come all the way to the top for approval. Because if you want to put a new board, which says welcome to Meghalaya in a new location, it's a new scheme, right? So this goes through for a 10,000 rupee board. So this goes around. So what we did in the enterprise architecture through in this project is basically we put this whole thing on a system, which is the entire process is automated. The entire process is on a computer. The entire process is for everybody to see. So half the system is wasting time. Where is my proposal? This 10,000 rupees I need. Where is my proposal? Or I already got it done. I need to pay the bill. Where is my proposal? So now this is there for everyone to see where this proposal is. And it is a lot of learning. So one day, the power secretary called me and he said, why things get delayed in government? I said, why? Because in your planning department, each proposal is vetted by 6 people. I said, how do you know that? He says, it's all there in the system. I can see the file moving from one person to one person. It takes 2 days everywhere. So these are the kind of things that I think putting out information tells us it is there. It's great learning for everybody. Now this whole thing, we are taking it down to the districts. We'll develop a single face of the government to the citizens, so that when citizens want services, they are not going to an education department or a health department or a agriculture department, but they are going to the government. They know who wants to find out what is the portal for this scheme, what are the documents I need. Other places have done these. These are possible. So to me, I think connecting back to the autonomy problem, one way to really solve this and put this, and move forward is information. So I think that also ties to performance measurement. So when we talk of evaluation and measurement and all these things, so if processes are clearly mapped and they're put on a technology platform, the technology itself throws results. That's how Amazon is kind of giving us recommendations of which movies you should watch and which things you should buy. It's the same thing. The same technology can give you who is the person who keeps a file for 20 days, who is the person who takes longer time to move things, who is the person who evaluates things well by writing longer things. So it gives, and again, I don't mean this in a very top-down kind of telling people what to do, but people are also cognizant as you get these nudges of information on how you are dealing with your problems, how you are solving your problems. I think this could be a powerful way to move forward. And again, somebody spoke about intrinsic motivation. I was not there for the session, but that is the other piece. So one is you fix the technology, information, so that things are there to see. And second is how do we, create this intrinsic motivation, nudges and pushes to kind of make people really go that extra mile. So again, it's inspiring what Professor Woolcock said about experiencing and how we choose what to do with our lives. So I guess, it's wonderful that we are able to put these all together. I should compliment Sir Sampath and his whole team for organizing this wonderful workshop and for bringing together all these, guests, both from, outside the country and outside the region. But also now I see that we are moving in the direction of how do we kind of concretize all this, create a framework so that we use all these learnings, all these frameworks, and really solve some fundamental problems. So I think that would be, I'd be very glad and happy to be part of this process. Look forward to engaging with all of you. Thank you so much.